What is up, everybody, and welcome to Shooting the Shit Uncensored. I am your host, the bald, the beard, the beautiful Piers Austin, and we are brought to you live by Multi-Continental Wrestling Alliance on Facebook and on YouTube. And also you can find us on Twitter and Instagram, so make sure to hit us up there as well. But guys, we are here with a very, very exciting show for you tonight. And I am over the moon. Words can't even describe it. I'm tongue-tied. I'm sorry. It's been a long day, but I have Big Fudge on the show tonight. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, Big Fudge. But before I bring out Mr. Fudge, I just want to take a quick second, a quick pause for the cause to thank some of our amazing sponsors. First up is A-Rock Designs. A-Rock Designs is that company you were seeing all over the wrestling groups, all over the wrestling pages. They make custom tumblers, T-shirts, cups, keychains, you name it, they make it. They made me this custom CM Punk tumbler, which I absolutely love because we all know I'm a huge Punk mark. Yet I still have not put beer in that cup. For some reason, I can't do it. I can't put beer in the cup, but coming into summertime, I'm sure I'll give it a try. Next is Signal Studios. Guys, if you are an independent professional wrestler and you want to get your hands on some new entrance music, the old stuff isn't that, catchy anymore, you want something fresh, hit up Signal Studios. Or if you're a musician in Sydney and you want a place to record, a place to rehearse, there is no more place that is comfortable, as relaxing as Signal Studios that get your creative juices flowing. But ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'm going to bring out my guest. I can see him in the back. He's excited. He's pumped. He's ready to come out here. It is Big Fudge. What's up, sir?
Hello. How are you?
Hello, I'm good, man. Welcome to Shooting the Shit Uncensored. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. I feel like there's a lot of hype, especially after that intro. I hope I don't shit the bed.
I'm sure you won't, man. I saw you at Movember to Remember, dude, and you were all the way through that card, man, and that was absolutely amazing, and the crowd was popping each and every time that you popped up, man, and it's an honor to have you on the show, dude. So
thanks, man. I remember at that November show, every time I was coming out, I was like, is this too much? I'm sick of me coming out at this point. All these guys surely have to be sick of me as well by this point because I'm sick of it. It was fun, though.
Not at all, man. It definitely was. So we got a few people in the chat. We got Joel Southgate. We got Joel. My girl Batsy over in the United States. We got Alcoholic Adam, who's sitting here ready for tonight's show on the piss as always. But Fudge, man, like, how long have you been wrestling for, dude? Because like trying to find information on you, it wasn't easy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I do extensive research, my friend, and it was very hard. Like I found little bits, but I did find a photo of a young child that looks somewhat similar to like you, the bottom jaw half, standing next to Austin Aries, but I can't be 200% sure on that one. So
yeah, I'm a bit of a man of mystery. I started wrestling in 2015, so over 5 years at this point. Training for a couple of years before that. So I started training at the Pro Wrestling Academy in 2013. And before that, before I even started my pro wrestling training, I did like 5 or 6 years of backyard wrestling, stupidly. So even though I'm only 25 years old currently, I feel like an old man. But that's how I met like Robbie Eagles and Matt Diamond and Kyle Fletcher.
Doing backyard?
Yeah, I met a few people. Yeah.
When people think backyard wrestling, like I think back, like I'm 38, and back when we saw a lot of backyard wrestling, like it was a lot of people inspired by Mick Foley, doing a lot of like backyard hardcore deathmatch type of shit. Is that the sort of stuff that you guys were doing, or were you guys doing more of the acrobatic style and the sort of chain wrestling style backyard wrestling?
Yeah, I was definitely doing the acrobatic style. I was doing all the flips. No, we weren't doing the deathmatch kind of hardcore wrestling. I was more like focused towards the chain kind of technical wrestling, like just learning cute little sequences, neat holds and stuff like that. That's always what interested me. But definitely when I first started getting into backyard wrestling, I was like amazed by the culture of this deathmatch backyard wrestling phenomenon. And that was even like prevalent in like the backyard wrestling video games. And there were like forums were very common back then. That's how we like all communicated with each other in backyard wrestling, because we didn't really have social media back then, other than like maybe MySpace or Bebo or whatever the fuck it was. Yeah, it was different times back then, man. Like, yeah, it was wild. Crazy to see, because I've kind of when I look at what I am now, I was never like an amazing backyard wrestler compared to like some of my friends I was with, because they were more athletic, they were more technically gifted. And I definitely, like, when I reflect on my time in backyard wrestling, towards the end, I was leaning more into the character silly stuff, which is what I'm doing now. So it's like parallels between what I did then and what I'm doing now. Crazy, actually.
100%. And, you mentioned, doing some of the comedic style stuff. And I think comedic parts in wrestling are amazing, because to be able to go in there to such a, I don't want to say testosterone fueled environment, but it's like that macho-ness of it comes out. So to be able to sit there and take a step back and not take yourself so seriously, and to have fun with it a bit more as well. And, like, is that where you sort of inspired to be? Like, you sort of enjoyed the comedic style of it a bit more than the seriousness of it?
When I got into pro wrestling, I didn't think I was going to be a comedic wrestler, but quickly made me realize that it was something that would make me stand out. Sure. And you're right. There are lots of wrestlers that take themselves like deadly seriously, but wrestling is a variety show, and there are different, excuse my pun, there are different flavors of everything in wrestling, and comedy is just one flavor. It's a good break. It's a good relief from the more serious wrestling. And I think actually if you have that variety, it can like heighten the seriousness of other matches on the card. And I don't know, man, it's just fun. It's just stupid. And I love doing it. It's just good to make people laugh. It's just a rewarding feeling. And I enjoy trying to figure out new ways to make people laugh. It's challenging though.
Were you always a fan of comedy as a kid growing up? Like, is that where it sort of blends into your wrestling persona? Like, I mean, were you a big fan of stand-up comedians or comedy shows? Like, where does your love from comedy stem from?
Yeah, I would say so. Even to this day, yeah. When I was growing up, I definitely loved comedy films. I liked stand-up comedy. I liked comedy films as well. Like, my favorite trilogy is probably the Cornetto trilogy, which is Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End. Growing up, I definitely loved shows like, I don't know, from the top of my head, Simpsons and South Park.
Yeah.
Those stuff definitely were very influential to me growing up into what I am today. And I still very much enjoy comedy, stand-up comedy, comedy and TV shows. It's just, I don't know, it's just good to have that break from reality and to laugh. I really feel like laughter is the best medicine in life, man. It's such a relief from whatever you've got weighing you down. When you have a moment where you just can laugh, have a little bit of a chuckle, it just, I don't know, it just makes you forget about all your worries. Hey,
man, I agree, dude. Like, I work in a very high stressful, shoot job. As much as I'd love to podcast for a living, I don't. But I work in a pretty high stressful job, and for me, it's like when I get home, it's like my wife's like, "What do you want to watch? Let's just watch something stupid funny." Like, you know what I mean? Like, just something ridiculous off the wall, because you're right. I mean, to sit there and be able to take a second and just like lose yourself in some ridiculousness and just laugh uncontrollably, it's the best feeling of like just de-stressing yourself in many ways.
absolutely, man. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. Usually when I'm trying to turn my brain off at night, I'm very much the same. I'll put on some lighthearted shit. I'll put on some comedy, and that's just a good way for me to calm down before I go to sleep.
Yeah, dude, and it's the best way, because like laughter is the best form of relaxation, and also keeping those endorphins at a certain limit. But as far as pro wrestling goes, like, who are some of like your main inspirations in the world of wrestling that you really looked up to as when you were younger?
Okay, this is a tough question.
It's like asking who your favorite wrestler is.
Yeah. Because I have like my favorite comedy wrestlers and I have my favorite serious wrestlers. And like
well, let's go comedy wrestlers. Who are your favorite comedy wrestlers?
Probably from the top of my head, guys like Kikutaro, he's number one easily. And I've always loved Santino Marella. Like, I think a guy like Santino, when I was growing up and watching WWE a bit, he really like always stood out in his segments, no matter what they were. And a guy like him helped me come around to thinking like, oh, maybe I could be a comedy wrestler when I get on shows, because then there might always be a position for me.
Yeah, dude, smart thinking.
Yeah,
like very smart
absolutely.
thinking, dude. Like, and
Thank you.
Santino
I'm a
Marella,
genius, actually.
I'm not worthy. Uh, but Santino Marella, it was definitely one of those guys that had that perfect comedic timing, and definitely, seeing you at the Movember to Remember show, your timing comedically was just on point. Like every time you came out, it was just like you did what you needed to do, and it was just like, man, I was in stitches, especially when you butt punched the guy from like Movember. I was like, that's hilarious.
Oh, thanks. That was like stressful going into that, because I didn't know I was going to like do this horrible dastardly thing. But Big Fudge has always been a character who, even though he's a babyface, he kind of does awful shit sometimes. I've always kind of compared him to like someone like Bugs Bunny, because you like watching Bugs Bunny really fuck with people and really annoy them. That's entertaining. And Bugs Bunny does some awful shit to people he doesn't like. And Big Fudge has done some awful shit, but that was like the first time at November to November where I was like, I used to just annoy my opponents, but that was the first time I was going out of my way to like annoy the fans, basically. So it was a bit of a twist, a bit of a turn on what I'm used to doing. But yeah, I've done some questionable things before as Fudge, but when I heard I was like going to punch a charity guy in the butt, I was excited and terrified.
Why were you terrified? Let's go there first before the excitement. But why were you terrified?
Just like, what are the ramifications of that? That surely isn't good PR. Surely that isn't a good reflection on me that I shit all over Movember and butt punch the ambassador who was at our show. But it's like wrestling's a silly thing. I'm a silly character. So we just went out there and had some fun, and hopefully we did something that was entertaining and memorable.
Oh, dude, 100% it was. But that's the thing I want to ask you is the butt punch is your finishing move. How did you come up with the butt punch, and like how did that sort of start flowing through your head to have that as a finishing move?
So, I think I probably stole it from a guy called Beef Wellington back in the day, who used to do a move called the ass punch, but he did it slightly different because he always jumped from the top rope to do it. And I was like, brother, you're going to blow out your knees doing that shit. I can just do it standing. And it was probably a combination of seeing people do the dick punch as well, like Chris Bosch and Elliot Sexton, who's now going by a different name, some famous AFL player's name who escapes me now, Tony something. I just thought, because I kept trying to come up with these elaborate comedy spots, like how do I tell a joke through this sequence of wrestling? I just thought it would be easier after a while of trying to come up with different spots. Like, what if I just did funny moves instead? What if the punchline was that my move is funny? And I think some weird combination got me to doing the butt punch. I obviously had the ass punch in the back of my mind from when I was younger, and I saw some Beef Wellington stuff, but I was like, maybe I can make it like more of a PG family-friendly version and also save my knees by like not jumping off the top rope every time, which also makes it like a more versatile move because it's more open to me doing it in various situations.
Absolutely, yeah. And you mentioned Beef Wellington, and it's funny you mentioned him because like as soon as I like started seeing your stuff, I got that sort of feel, like very similar, like not saying the same, but very sort of, the butt punch was the dead giveaway for me because I remember I'm a huge mark for like indie wrestling and CZW. Like I know more about the American early 2000 indies than probably one person should know. But in saying that, yeah, like Beef Wellington, Excalibur, when they had the tag team back, I think it was around 05, it was 2 girls, 1 cup. And it was like, that's a very similar style that I saw. Like the sense of humor is on that same part, plus the butt punch. It was like, yeah. Then as soon as you told me that that's where it was, I was like, that's where I saw the connection, the butt punch. So
yeah, man, well spotted. I used to really enjoy Excalibur back in the day as well. He had some really funny promos, especially with Beef Wellington, but a lot of them we definitely couldn't quote at all today in 2020. Oh boy, some of them really don't hold up. Oh, but yeah, definitely. I don't know. I just remember watching those guys and being entertained when I was younger, getting into indie wrestling. I guess unintentionally, even though it panned out that way, Los Ice Creams from Chikara were another inspiration for my character.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, and I didn't. All right, I'll tell you where Big Fudge came from now, and I hope I don't get sued over this.
Not at all.
Even though Big Fudge isn't a super original name and other people have used it before, I stole it from How I Met Your Mother. So it goes back into my love of comedy that we were just talking about before.
Yeah.
I was training for a few years, and then I got to a point where I was like, I need a fucking character so I can get on shows, do something that makes me stand out. And I was watching How I Met Your Mother, and Marshall used to call himself Big Fudge when he was in college. And I remember watching that show thinking, Big Fudge is a fucking hilarious name. And I kind of pinched it from there. But the character, like, back then was way different to what it turned out to be now. Like, I wanted to be like a bland heel in like black trunks that just had the nickname Big Fudge for no distinguishable reason. Like, no one could figure out why this guy thought he was Big Fudge. And like some characteristics are similar. Like I am an egomaniac that thinks I'm fucking huge or whatever. And that's something that I thought would work well as a heel character, but it just ended up being a babyface character because the promoter back then was like, well, maybe you could wear a mask and be a colorful character. And I never thought I was going to wear a mask. Long story short, he did like a quick design of like a sketch of what he wanted Big Fudge to look like. And it looked like it looked like a poo monster. It looked like the poo monster from Dogma, if you've ever seen that movie.
Yes.
It just looked really awful. And then I thought, I'm going to pick a different color. I'm going to try and do something different. And I thought pink was a bright color that would stand out, especially as a gentleman. And he suggested me having a chocolate mohawk, which turned into the chocolate bar on my head today. So that's a quick recap of the Big Fudge origin story, even though you didn't fucking ask. There it is.
Dude, no, please. That's I love it. So you started out as Big Fudge, the name, and then evolved obviously the character. But how has the character evolved over the 5 years that you've been performing?
It's evolved a lot, surprisingly. Like I always have different kind of characters or personas I wear over Big Fudge. When I first started out, I really leaned into the fitness side of the character. Like I was this fitness maniac who was always trying to like work out my matches, doing push-ups and squats and shit. And for a while, that's how I got my humor across. But then I kind of got sick of that. No one likes doing squats and push-ups anyway, so I didn't want to fucking do it in the middle of my matches. And then I started experimenting with some different kind of ideas. One character that comes to mind I was doing for a while was the Garbage Man. And that's kind of like, once again, referencing to comedy, because I take a lot of my ideas from comedy outside of wrestling. I kind of pinched that from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, because Danny DeVito's character becomes a wrestler called the Garbage Man in the wrestling episode they do. So I thought it'd be really funny, like, what's the stupidest fucking thing I can get over? I can try and get over this Garbage Man bullshit. So for a while, I was obsessed with garbage and was carrying a garbage bag to the ring. And I've also been the sanitation commissioner, which was an extension of that. I guess an extension that I've come into this year is like my undefeated streak is like a new evolution of the character. I've done Ultimate Fighter Fudge before. I've done a couple of matches where I've come out in shorts and boxing gloves and tried my best to shoot grapple with guys, even though I was severely underqualified at doing that. So I've always tried to experiment with different kind of quirks I can add to my character and different things I can experiment with. One other thing I'm forgetting about, which is like right behind me. Let me see if I can position it. There's a portrait back there of the Fudge Taker, which is like a character I've also done like a couple times. It started out at like a Newy Pro Halloween show a few years ago because the theme, like everyone always dresses up for Newy Pro Halloween shows. That's the big thing. That's the WrestleMania. So we did a dumb angle back then where I got like killed off on the show and came back as the Fudge Taker. So, hey, Joel Southgate just said I'm the worst sanitation commissioner of all time. So fuck you, Joel Southgate. Anyway,
Oh, poor
no,
Joel.
he's all right. I'm just messing with him. Joel knows I like him. So yeah, I guess I've leaned into a few different aspects of my character and tried out different hats, and that's the cool thing about comedy, man. You can't just keep telling the same joke over and over and over again. I don't think you can have like a structure and you can have things you fall back to, but you have to kind of find new material to work with. So over the years, I've definitely experimented with doing different characters and wearing different costumes over this persona that I already have.
Yeah, right. So it's like adding a persona on top of the persona.
Yeah, absolutely, man, for sure. Yeah, and it's
But
like I think like you asked me before, like who my favorite wrestlers were growing up. Chris Jericho was easily one of the dudes I looked up to the most, and he's a dude that's been able to innovate and evolve his character more than anyone I can think of off the top of my head. Like he's just done so many different variations of his gimmick, and it's always kept him fresh and interesting. So that's something I try to take away myself. Like, how can I always keep myself fresh and interesting?
Oh, absolutely. Joshua Tattersall, who's a big Aussie wrestling fan, saying he misses you, Big Fudge. Huge shout out to Josh. He's going through some health issues at the moment. We wish you well here, brother, and speedy recovery.
All the best, Josh. Hope you're doing well, brother. Thanks for tuning in tonight, man.
Absolutely. But, and you mentioned like some of the comedies that you're really into watching, like How I Met Your Mother. You and also Always Sunny in Philadelphia. You're a guy I could easily have a couple of beers with, or chocolate milkshakes, whatever a Fudge eats.
Maybe a Bailey's?
Bailey's, yeah, we can get Bailey's.
Fudge is a really bad drinker as well, actually. That's another persona I've tampered with. Fudge the drunk, Fudge the alcoholic, and Fudge doesn't handle his alcohol well at all.
I am going to go and find those vignette videos right after this. I have to see that. How long did you do that for?
I think it was like a one show thing, or I've maybe done it in a couple shows off the top of my head. But yeah, Fudge, and that's probably loosely based on who I am in real life, because I probably don't handle my alcohol that well either, to be honest. So I just lean into that.
I don't think anyone
we'll
handles
get some
their
beers one day.
well.
We'll talk about awesome comedy shows, man. We'll line it up.
Oh, dude, 100%. Awesome comedy shows in wrestling. That would be something cool.
Yes.
Have a stand-up comedian. Maybe that's another part of your character you could extend. The stand-up comedian halfway through the matches start like dropping a few lines.
Oh man, I dabbled in stand-up comedy like last year, pre like COVID times, and it was fucking so hard, dude. Like I definitely I probably did like 4 or 5 shows. I think one of them went really well. And like the rest, I fucking sucked. And like, when you go in,
that's like anything you start.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
absolutely.
wrestling. Like I'm sure if COVID hadn't hit and you were consistently going out there, you would have just like seen the improvements over time, though.
Yeah, and I was interested to keep pursuing it, but I think COVID kind of pushed me away from it a bit more. But like, man, I like most of the time I would do it as Fudge. I would like sneakily bring my mask in, and when it was time for me to go on stage, I would fucking put it on and try to just lean into my character. But it just didn't gel at those venues. Like some of them were like really dodgy bars that had like 10 people there, and it was just like a cold, unwelcoming, like environment. But yeah, I would like to maybe one day go back into that world, but it was tough. And like you said, starting any new skill takes patience, and I don't fucking have patience. I want to be amazing straight away, man, instantly. But that's not realistic. That's not reality. But maybe one day.
How did you find, like, obviously with that mentality, like getting into pro wrestling? Because like everyone has said, like when they first started, they were terrible. Like as I said, everyone's terrible at the start, but practice gets you better. With your mentality of like, I want to be great straight away, did you go in and did you pick things up quickly, or were you getting frustrated? No. Was it a frustrating experience for someone like you?
Yeah, man, I was a slow learner for sure. Like I mentioned previously, I think it took me about 2 years, a little over 2 years to get on shows. I saw so many people that started training after me skyrocket to being on shows before me. And man, it was tough to watch. And sometimes, because like I'm not a naturally athletic guy, I'm not a naturally strong guy. Like those experiences were frustrating, and there were times where I was like, fuck, I'm never going to get this. But like I say this to trainees all the time, like You literally just have to just stick with it. And if you keep staying with it and be too stubborn to fucking quit, then eventually you'll be on shows, which is pretty much how I wound up in pro wrestling. I just was too stubborn to give up, even though it was tough and it was difficult for me, especially in that first year. Like that first year, I remember was really hard to pick up some of the skills and I don't know, I'm not a coordinated guy, man. I really should never have been a wrestler, but here I am. So through sheer stupidity and stubbornness, I made it.
But you stuck with it, man. No, not at all. You stuck with it, man, and that's where it's got you to the dance today, is because you've stuck with it, and you were determined to perform at a level that you wanted to perform at, and now you're doing that. So, have you ever had a chance to go overseas and wrestle yet?
No, I haven't, man. It's on my bucket list. There are some places I want to hit up. Off the top of my head, DDT in Japan is a dream for me, and I'm so jealous because like Royce Chambers got to go over there. Like it's just the stupidest, silliest wrestling. It looks like the most fun in the world, and me and Jimmy Townsend often fantasize about going over to do DDT in the future and wrestling there one day. But hopefully that'll be a reality and not a fantasy in the future. We'll see what happens. I'd love for that to happen one day.
Oh, absolutely. What are some of the other places you'd like to go and travel to perform?
Man, there are lots. At the top of my head, I'd like to hit up the American Indies. I really wouldn't know where to begin. Beyond Wrestling seems like a great in for a lot of people who like fresh faces in America, or even like people traveling around that come there. So I'd like to hit them up. Man, I don't know. You're really putting me on the spot here. I'm trying to think. In England, I'm trying to give you some variety here. So I said Japan, I said America. In England, a company I'll give you two companies that are at the top of my list. Attack, which is like a silly kind of company, and Schadenfreude. I don't know if I can pronounce that right, but like they've made a company, Schadenfreude and Friends. I'm probably butchering saying that, but both those shows look like they're a bunch of fun, and they're really pushing the limits of what professional wrestling can be. And those are the shows that I'm interested in, man. Like that's why I'm interested in DDT. It's like things that take the conventions of wrestling and fucking flip them on their head. Those are the environments I want to be a part of.
Trying something different and unique, and because that's the thing, like DDT is known for some of its like outlandishness and craziness, and same with Attack as well. So I hadn't heard of, what was the other one? Schadenfreude.
I don't know how to pronounce every time, but it's like it's the group that has Kyle Fletcher, Mark Davis, Chris Brooks, and Kid Lycos. And they haven't been running shows for that long. They basically started running last year, pre-COVID times, before that fucked everything up. And they were just doing some ridiculous shows. Like they were doing some crazy shit. I think they did a match where it was like a multi-man match, but the purpose of the match was to stop a balloon from hitting the floor. I think they've done like a 1 count match. Like the point was to pin your opponent for a count of 1. They've done some matches which have looked like borderline plays, like performances where they've dressed up as characters and all murdered each other and shit. So I don't know. That place stood out to me. That looked like a fun place to work. And I know a couple of people there. But it's all very uncertain. Like I'm not sure what's still going to run in the future as well and stuff like that. That's kind of stopped me from saying some companies in America as well. It's really uncertain in this, like in 2020, man. What a fucking year. Like it just makes everything unclear about the future.
Absolutely. Alcoholic Adam says GCW he thinks would suit you well, Fudge. I think so too, man. GCW, the Invisible Man, Big Fudge.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I'd love to be on Joey Janela's Spring Break. That would be great.
Dude, those fucking those cards look insane. They just look ridiculous. But that's the thing, man. You're seeing a lot more wrestling promotions utilizing comedic wrestling, and I think there's always a place for it on the card. And you mentioned it before about being, like it's something for everybody, and it's almost like the wrestling buffet. If a company can hit everything on that wrestling buffet, like the high flying, the technical wrestling, the comedy, the women, the hardcore matches, and all that sort of stuff, and put that into one show, you really do then hit the buffet of professional wrestling.
Yeah, it's a sweet meal, man. When you have all those different things, you can eat them all, and it just keeps everything more exciting as well, more interesting. Because when you have less of everything, but more different things available, it just makes each individual thing more special, I guess.
Oh, 100%. And, do you have you ever had any desire to turn Big Fudge into more of a serious character? Like if you were to turn Big Fudge big heel, I don't know.
Yeah. Um, I have those fantasies from time to time. Um, it's always lingering at the back of my mind, like, oh, I could take my mask off and be a serious wrestler and then be a big bad guy. And like, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, like that idea is at the back of my mind a lot. And the reason why it's at the back of my mind is because there is a ceiling on what comedy wrestlers can achieve for the most part. I think there are some exceptions, like Orange Cassidy has done very well for himself recently. And some huge superstars in wrestling have gotten over from using comedy in wrestling, like The Rock, who's a guy I can think of at the top of my head. But for the most part, comedy wrestlers don't win the big matches. They don't win the world titles. So it makes me think like, man, if I want to be more than what I am currently, I'd have to really change and take myself seriously and do something completely different to separate myself from Fudge. It wouldn't just be like a Big Fudge heel turn where I'm just the same character doing some heel shit. It would have to be something that was completely different to what I am now, so I could separate those images, those characters completely, and have create a new perception of how fans saw me. So that fantasy is there sometimes, especially if I feel like whenever I felt frustrated about like, oh, maybe I'll never be a big wrestling superstar. But man, the thing is, I was talking to a wrestler about this. I'm not going to say the name. The other week, actually, it's like I actually think like I've had some clarity this year, and it's like I'm actually happy just being the comedy guy. Though it's like if I don't win the big one, if I don't fucking be a world champion, I'm just happy being the guy that has a spot in the shows, doing comedy matches, and if people remember me for that, that'd be fucking sweet. If I can make people laugh, entertain them doing this, that's fucking sweet. And it's like there are different positions on shows. There are different roles. We all play a role as part of a bigger team. And it's like, I really enjoy my role. I honestly do have lots of fun doing my job as a comedy wrestler. And if I stop having fun doing it, or if I get sick of it, maybe that's when I'll go down that path in the future. But at the moment, man, I'm having too much fun doing this shit.
And that's the main fucking thing, dude. As long as you're having fun doing it, you're enjoying it, and you're getting over, which you absolutely are. Like you had the crowd eating the out of the palm of your hand the other week, and the performance that you can put on in that role. If you can keep that passion, that keep doing it, man. But I think when you said, comedic wrestlers don't always, win the big one, I think that it is, I can see what you're saying there, but there has been wrestlers who can then switch and go back and forth between the two. Like someone like Eric Young. Has someone like he been an inspiration to you in your career?
Yeah, Eric Young is phenomenal, man. And he's a guy in his TNA days, and even to this day now, where like you could fucking give him anything and he would excel at it. He would take any dumb idea you give him and make it incredible. And that's kind of something I like to do. And you're right, he could have that switch where he could be serious. And like, yeah, you're right. He could be a great inspiration for a character like Big Fudge if I did have to have a switch and have more of a serious persona. And I guess throughout my 5 years, I definitely have had those moments, even though I'm a big fucking goofy character, where I have had to have more serious matches. I've had to have more serious moments. And I'm sure there'll be more of those in the future as well. But yeah, you're right. It's great when you can balance the two. And you're right. Lots of wrestlers have been able to do that. But that expression always comes to mind that I think, I don't know if Colt Cabana popularized it, but he definitely brought it to my attention. Funny doesn't equal money. And that's not something he invented. That's something that like promoters said to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, I
probably
heard
Cornette.
that.
That wouldn't surprise me at all. So it's tough, but I also think funny does equal money because funny is very marketable. So it depends on what kind of money you're thinking about. It's like you can still make a lot of money and not be the fucking top guy, not be the world champion. Sometimes being the world champion doesn't necessarily mean you're selling the most merchandise, you're making the most money. And at least I do have a character with a broad appeal. That's something I enjoy. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's just I think if I did go into a serious character in the future, I would miss doing the stupid shit that I do now. I just saw a comment come up, by the way, that said, "What do I think of Botchamania?" I just want to say I fucking love Botchamania, and every time
Hell
there's a new
yeah,
episode
dude.
that comes out, I immediately watch the shit out of it. And I don't know if
I
you're
love
aware
it.
of this or if that viewer was aware of this, but I'll share a quick story with you about Botchamania. I made a Botchamania introduction a couple years ago,
No shit.
and it was stupidly overproduced. What we did was me and Ben Anderson, who is like pretty much the director of PWA. He like organizes all the live streams. He organizes a lot of our promos. He does a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and he's the reason why a lot of us look like superstars. He pitched this idea to me because I told him like he loves Botchamania as well. Like, hey man, I really want to make a Botchamania intro, and I know you'd make it really stand out.
That's
We came
cool.
up with the idea of getting an ice cream van, and then he came up with the idea of me running over someone with an ice cream van. So then the Botchamania intro was me running over unsocial Jordan with an ice cream van. And fuck, dude, the way we pulled it off, like Ben Anderson brought in like a fucking whole team from his film school to help, like with a stunt crew, basically, and basically like we used After Effects, like CGI editing, to create this effect from several different shots that we all stitched together, and it actually came out looking pretty good. Like I was skeptical when we first put it together, but the real message from that story is finding an ice cream van to rent is stupidly fucking difficult. We looked in every corner of the fucking universe for an ice cream van, like someone that owned an ice cream van that would be willing to rent it to us.
Yeah.
And every time I approached an ice cream van being like, hey man, can I use this to like film something where I run someone over? They would like, no, and they'd just speed off or whatever the fuck. It was just no one wanted to
Turn the little button. Ding 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 ding.
Yeah.
As they're driving
no one
away
wants
from
to negotiate.
what in the fucking sprinkles?
Yeah. That's actually
That's
where
cool.
the picture I sent you that we used for the promo for this came from. Because we had the ice cream van for a couple hours. We shot the Botchamania intro, and then afterwards we're like, fuck it, let's do a promo with it as well. So we used it for a promo with Tree Hugger Lucci when I was feuding with him. So you got some bang for our buck from it, but it wasn't cheap getting that fucking ice cream van. But it was worth it.
Really?
I'll treasure the memories for the rest of my life.
Well, at least you may have built up a relationship, so maybe the guy will rent you the ice cream truck again, and you can
Yeah, Ben
incorporate
Anderson still sees him around all the time, apparently. He always takes pictures whenever he sees him. His name's Ricky.
Ricky the ice cream man. Hopefully
Yes,
you're a wrestling fan,
absolutely.
dude.
Yeah.
So we got a follow up question from that. What do wrestlers feel about being on Botchamania? Is it a shame or a badge of honor?
It's a fucking pop, brother. I reckon, like, I got on Botchamania before that as well, through a botch spot because I tried to military press Jax Jordan through a table and he just fucking ricocheted off it. He just bounced off it. And man, when we made it onto Botchamania, we were so hyped. And whenever I see my friends on Botchamania, I get excited for them. I'm like, you fucking made it. Like, you haven't made it until you've been on Botchamania, man. That's where true recognition is.
Dude, I think I saw Kurt Angle on there where he botched a chair shot, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like RVD threw the chair at him, he caught it, and RVD did the kick, and you see like Kurt have the chair like that and just go like that and not even come close to his head. And like I'm pretty sure it's Kurt Angle, but I'm sure people in the comments are going to blow it up and tell me I was wrong. It was like Charlie Huss or something. So
that was Mr. Wrestling 27. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Damn it. It was Hulk Hogan. Shit.
That sounds like some quality Botchamania content. And that's like, man, it's the reason why I like Botchamania as well, because like when you're in a match and you blow a spot, it is super disheartening in that moment because I'm a perfectionist and I know a lot of my peers are perfectionists as well.
Yeah.
But I don't know, just watching it on Botchamania, just seeing it in a different light, it's just a bit more silly, it's just a bit more fun. And when you can watch a clip on Botchamania, even if it's a clip you've been in, and it's a nice way to like kind of put it behind you and think, oh yeah, that was funny. It didn't work out. That's fucking life. It's how it goes.
About trying new shit anyway, you know what I mean? Like try something out, see what sticks. But man, like imagine being back in the day in the ECW crowd and you're like make a mistake there. It's like you fucked up. It's like, yes, I know you motherfuckers. Like give me a break.
Yeah, that was harsh, man. I'm glad I haven't really had to perform in those kind of circumstances where fans let me know how badly I've botched. But yeah, I'm very fortunate that I didn't wrestle in ECW for that reason. I'm not sure if I have the emotional security. If I'm probably too insecure to do it. I'd probably weep up in the ring. I'd probably shed a tear.
Just see Big Fudge in the corner of the ring, just rocking back and forth, going, "Stop it!"
Absolutely, I love having myself a good cry.
Hey man, nothing wrong with that, bro. Sometimes you just got to let it out, man. Let out those happy tears.
Yeah, I couldn't sit at the bed myself, man.
But you know, what's the plan for the rest of the year for you guys? So you've got another show coming up in December for PWA. Are you going to be on that show?
Yes, and I'm excited for it, but I can't say what I'm doing. But man, I'll tell you this. And I was thinking about this the other day. I was doing a bit of reflecting because 2020 has been a shitty year, and I've mentioned that. And that's not news to anyone. What, 2020 is a shitty year? This is a news bulletin. I didn't know this. But thinking about what I've done in wrestling this year, I feel like incredibly fortunate. I actually think I've had a pretty good year in 2020 for my wrestling, even though it's been quite sporadic and I haven't wrestled a lot. I'm very happy with some of the shit I've managed to achieve in 2020. And knowing this, what I'm going to be doing on our December show, it's like a good exclamation mark. It's like a good way to end it all, I think. I'm very intrigued. I'm excited about this idea, but I can't say what it is yet. It will come out in due time. You'll find out. But yeah, I am excited. And I think there are going to be some good matches on that show as well. I think Ricky South versus Kyle Fletcher just got announced tonight.
Yeah.
So I'm sure PWA is going to look to end the year on a bang.
Oh, absolutely, man. I've already got my ticket ready to go for the show, man. I'm really excited for it. You know, after coming to I've seen 2 PWA shows live recently, and you guys just knocked it out of the park, especially in that smaller, you know, environment. Have you found wrestling from obviously larger crowds to now in front of 50 to nearly 0 people when you're doing the premiership?
We're doing the premiership. Yeah.
Yeah. So how does that feel? Like, what's the dynamic like that for you to wrestle in front of 0 fans and then obviously wrestle in front of a smaller crowd as opposed to, you know, a couple of thousand plus?
I don't mind wrestling in front of small crowds. Hey, I've had some of my funnest matches in front of small crowds because it's such an intimate experience. And sometimes when the crowds are smaller, you actually feel like it's achievable to make a connection with each person in the audience sometimes, depending on like how many people are there. And a lot of people hate it. A lot of people think it's awkward, but I enjoy it. Like, man, if you don't enjoy wrestling in front of fucking 5 people, then you shouldn't enjoy wrestling in front of 5,000 people. It's like, just enjoy wrestling for the sake of the wrestling. But not everyone will see it that way. I know that's maybe a controversial opinion to have inside this business. But even wrestling in front of like no one, once again, people might fucking hate the shit out of that. And in some circumstances, it looks incredibly awkward. But the way I see it is when I'm doing a match in front of no fans, it can't flop because I'm not trying to get the fans behind it. It's not like I'm trying to get a pop or applause or I'm trying to get them to laugh or boo or whatever. And that works really well with comedy as well because it's like sometimes being a comedic wrestler, you can be doing a comedic spot which is just really fucking falling flat and no one cares and it's dead silence. But if it's in front of no fans, that shit doesn't fucking matter. So in the PWA Premiership, I feel like we can, well, me at least, and I'm sure other comedic wrestlers like Jimmy Townsend, we can push the limits of comedic wrestling in front of no fans. And in fact, me and Jimmy Townsend did exactly that in our first round matchup. We had the stupidest fucking match we could think of. and it didn't matter because there were no fans there. So if they didn't pop for it, they didn't like it, well, we weren't going to hear from it immediately out there, basically. So in that regard, it's like I guess it's like a glass half full kind of perception.
Sure.
But also there are moments, I'm sure, where you're taking the big bumps, the big falls, and it's like, oh, it would be nice if there was a reaction here. And sometimes those silences can be uncomfortable, but I really like to embrace those uncomfortable situations, to be honest.
You get funnier moments from it, dude, as well. Yeah, the more uncomfortable it is, it's like, you push that boundary, and it definitely, like, from seeing it, I think that having small crowds and having no people in the crowd sucks, obviously from a fan's perspective. But from looking at it from like a performer's standpoint, have you found it to be something that has gotten people to tighten up some of the skills that they have, whether it be like when they're communicating in the ring, calling spots, something like that? Or has it just been like you've seen that consistent level of ultra professionalism from the very go? But what I guess I'm asking is, like, have you seen an improvement of the in-ring performance from having no fans because of your having to tighten certain areas up?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think that's a beautiful observation, and it's spot on. I think not just within PWA, I've seen it a lot within wrestling in general. Doing these shows in front of like empty arenas or like very small crowds, like it forces you to become a better performer, and it forces you to be more grateful for just being able to wrestle, even if there is no one there, basically, because at least we have that, and it also makes you think about it differently, because like I said, you're not working towards a reaction, you're not working towards a pop, so you're just focusing solely more on story. Where are we going to go next? What are we going to do? So yeah, it makes you think about the business differently, and I think for that reason it is an advantage. It's it's a good outcome to have from a weird fucking year. But man, let me tell you, I'm sure you've already heard about this a lot. I'm sure a lot of people have already said this before me, but when we get back to Max Watts, which is our venue, our home, like, man, nothing compares to that. The aura of that venue, the feeling, the vibe in the air, there's just something about it that doesn't compare to anything else, man. It's like the greatest venue I performed in front of, and like it's electric in there. And I think we're all really looking forward to going back to our home in Max Watts in the future. And once you get the chance to be a part of that Max Watts experience, you'll be like, this is fucking wild, man. This is different.
Yeah, man, I can't wait. Have they mentioned when they'll be heading shows back there anytime?
I have no idea. I'm not on the inside there. I do not get the information. I wish I had that kind of information.
Oh, man, there you go. Big Fudge just gets told where to turn up and wrestle.
Exactly, man. Yeah, no one fucking tells me shit.
That could be both a good thing and a bad thing, man.
Yeah, ignorance is bliss.
Also, man, I wanted to discuss your podcast that you do. Like, as a fellow podcaster, man, when I found that out, I was intrigued, man. And, what's your podcast about? Is it a wrestling related podcast? What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, man, Conquer and the Fudge. We haven't done it for a while. It's the most sporadic, infrequent podcast in wrestling of all time. I host it with my co-host, Concrete Davidson. We started it several years ago. It kind of launched off the back of another one of his podcasts that he did. He did a podcast early on in his career, I believe, called Wrestling Podclash. And I used to listen to that when I was younger and I was a fan and a trainee coming up in the business. And yeah, it's mostly to do about wrestling, but sometimes it's loosely based on wrestling. Sometimes it's just us talking about stupid shit. Sometimes it's just us talking about whatever interests us. But seeing how we are wrestlers and we largely interview wrestlers as the majority of people we've had on as guests, it is about wrestling, but it's more about, I would say, the comedy or humor in wrestling, kind of funny situations that have unfolded. But yeah, man, it's a more lighthearted podcast. But we did a few episodes earlier this year over like Zoom and shit. Mm-hmm. We've taken a break once again because we really need to rest after the 3 episodes we did this year. That was a heavy workload, man. That was a lot of content. And Concrete, sorry.
That's heaps. That's heaps.
Yeah, for sure. You'd know that as well. Concrete's a dad now as well, so he's got his priorities straight. So maybe we might come back to it in the future. I'm certainly proud of some of the stuff we've done. We've done 2 live shows. The last one we did prior to Coliseum last year, and we managed to get Orange Cassidy on as one of the guests. So that was fucking sick. But we've had I think we've been very fortunate to get a bunch of cool guests, and we've had some really cool discussions over the several years that we've been doing it, man. So yeah, it's something I am grateful for, but I'm not really sure when it's going to come back in the future, to be honest.
Dude, man, you definitely have the personality and the entertainment factor for podcasting, dude. If this one doesn't continue, you should definitely look into doing it, man. Because I think you're definitely on a very high entertaining level, dude. As I said, from first coming to the PWA show, wrist locks and pile drivers with you and Ricky South, man, I was instantly a fan of you guys, man. Like what you do in the ring, man, is so refreshing. Yet changing it from so different of like, it's a nice sort of break in the seriousness of professional wrestling to see some good comedy in it as well. And also comedy done correctly.
Thanks, man. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I'm not sure if there is a correct way to do comedy. It's kind of very abstract, isn't it? I guess it comes down to personal taste a lot of the time. And I'm always trying to throw shit at the wall to figure out how can I do this.
That's the thing, man. That's exactly what you need to do in the world of pro wrestling and comedy, man. And you're definitely hitting the nail on the head there. And I definitely think you should give the stand-up another crack, dude. Seriously, I would come and check out that stand-up.
Thanks, man. Yeah. Oh, dude, we've talked about doing like, and I guess it was like kind of an idea that steamrolled from Conquer and the Fudge, the podcast, but like doing a stand-up wrestling show where we get wrestlers to do stand-up comedy. I think that would be funny one day to see how that goes. That's an idea at the back of the head. And yeah, I think I would like to try and give it a go. It's daunting. It's terrifying. And it's very challenging. But in the future, when I have a bit more time and when things are running a bit more smoothly, I would like to get into it a bit more. We've talked a lot about different stuff. Before we wrap up today, maybe I can tell you a couple dumb fucking stories from my wrestling career before. Actually, I feel really bad because I'm absolutely recycling these stories from the last podcast I did like a month ago.
That's okay, man. We're all about ridiculous shit here on Shooting the Shit. So yeah, man. Like, all right, what's been your most craziest, wildest experience in the professional wrestling world?
Okay, a couple stories that come to mind. I don't know how crazy it is. It's more stupid than crazy, I would say.
You can change names to protect the guilty if you like.
Yeah. No, I think I'm going to name and shame. In my pursuit to combine comedy and wrestling, a big thing I've done repeatedly is introduce props into wrestling. I just remembered this then because I saw something to remind me of it. And one thing I've stupidly tried to do too many times is cross over food into wrestling matches. So I'll tell you my first story. They're both food stories.
Okay.
And they both went horribly wrong. Basically, the outcome is I'm really good at fucking up wrestling rings with food. So I had a match. It was a TLC match. Tables, ladders, and chocolates. It was me and Concrete Davidson against Jax Jordan, who's now our video boy, Jax, and Jared Idol. They used to be a tag team called VIP. And it was my idea to basically involve like different kinds of chocolates and chocolate syrup in that match. And there was a spot where we were setting up a table and we wanted it to look like fucking ECW in the 90s where the Dudleys would do the flaming tables. But instead we were doing it with the chocolate syrup. So I was like so insistent on using this chocolate syrup that I wasn't going to bump through to like Jax and Jared, my opponents. And they eventually caved and like, yeah, let's do it. And we did it. And the story goes, Jax was setting up the table and squirting the chocolate sauce on it. And he kind of did like a nice fine line. It wasn't a mess yet. And he was like, nah, I'll do a bit more. He goes for another squirt, and it fucking explodes everywhere.
Oh.
And he takes the table bump, but because I'm wrestling him, I get covered in chocolate sauce. And the ring canvas is covered in chocolate sauce. And it was indeed at Parramatta RSL, Joel Southgate. You are correct. The best part of the story is Damian Slater, who was fresh back from his participation in the Cruiserweight Classic, was wrestling after us in his brand new, like, sexy gear that he had for the Cruiserweight Classic. And he had to wrestle in this shitty ring that had chocolate stains all over it.
Oh dear, that's fucked. I bet promoters must love you. Like just turning up, and going, I'm just gonna fuck up your ring.
Here's my resume. I'm really good at fucking up wrestling rings, and here's the sequel to that story because I really didn't learn my lesson that night because I'm too fucking naive and stubborn. Another extension of my gimmick I was doing a while ago was I was wrestling in Newy Pro and doing this part of my character where I was really obsessed with chicken nuggets for whatever reason. Even though I am a confectionery character and my name is Big Fudge, for whatever reason, I was fucking apeshit crazy about chicken nuggets. That was like cocaine to me. I lived for that shit. So I was doing a match with Ricky South. And I would often at that point in time come out to the ring with bags of McDonald's with chicken nuggets inside of them. And that night, we had sent a rookie to get the McDonald's for us, and he gave us the bag, and we didn't know that there was sweet and sour sauce in the bag as well as the nuggets. So what happened was me and Ricky thought it would be funny. By the way, really fucked up what I'm about to say anyway, but me and Ricky thought it would be funny if we recreated the bit from Family Guy where James Woods is being lured by a trail of candy into like a thing with like a twig holding it up. So the way it worked was Ricky stole my nuggets and then left a trail of nuggets across the ring. And then I was walking across the ring, picking up these nuggets, saying, "Ooh, a nugget," and putting it in my fucking mouth off the dirty ring canvas, which everyone had sweated on and bled on and wrestled on that night. And then the punchline was he had the final nugget. So after I followed the trail of nuggets, he had the final nugget and he dropped it in his trunk. So I would put my head in there for the pile driver. Now,
it's so fucked up.
Yeah. So I couldn't even chew or swallow the nuggets because I'm like 7 or 8 minutes into this match. I'm dry. I've got dry mouth. I'm fucking gassed, whatever the fuck. So I can't actually chew these nuggets. So I just have about like 8 or 9 nuggets in my mouth. And then I can't chew, and I'm getting fucking pile drive. And then at some point in time, because the bag of McDonald's is still in there, the sweet and sour sauce, I think Ricky took a bump on the bag, and the sweet and sour sauce fucking exploded everywhere. So I made another big mess. But luckily for me, after that, Matt Rogers wrestled Carter Deems, and Matt Rogers fucking busted open Carter Deems. And wouldn't you know it, sweet and sour sauce gets blood right out the match. So that combination worked well. It didn't look so bad when there was all the blood on the mat after my match when I'd already spilled sweet and sour sauce on it. So it worked out pretty good in my favor. But that was probably the last time I wrestled and thought, yeah, I'm not going to do these matches with food anymore.
You know what? I think I've seen a meme of like your head down Ricky's trunks in the pile driver thing. I'm not sure if it 100%, but as soon as you said, I'm pretty sure there's a meme about that. And it's got like, so you think wrestling is fun? Ask this guy. I'll have to try and find my life in there.
Wrestling is fun. I was fucking 9 nuggets deep in my mouth that I couldn't chew or swallow, head first in Ricky's trunks. Like, there's no place I'd rather be in life.
Man, it sounds like your happy place, Fudge.
Yeah, man, absolutely. That's my ecstasy right there.
That's it, man. On that note, I'm going to wrap it up. Fudge, thank you so much for being a guest on Shooting the Shit Uncensored. It has been an absolute pleasure. I've been in absolute stitches. Fudge, can you tell everyone where they can find you out on social media, brother?
Sure thing. Thanks for having me on, by the way, man. I've had lots of fun. It was good chatting to you. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at buttpuncher, one word, _buttpuncher_. And I think I'm on Facebook at the Butt Puncher. So those are my social medias. Go follow them.
There you go. And he's not on Grinder under Butt Puncher either, are you?
No, I've got a different username for my Grinder.
Oh, okay.
I don't like to mix my work life and personal life together.
Makes 100% sense, dude. But guys, thank you so much for watching. Big Fudge, you can find him on the 5th of December. PWA are going to be holding another show. If you can't attend to it because they are sold out, make sure you subscribe to OVO Play and check it out. And you can go watch all of PWA's back catalog. All of Big Fudge's great matches have been on there. So go and check it out. Subscribe to that. And while you're watching this, if you haven't already subscribed to our YouTube channel, smash that thumbs up button, give us a like, and let us know that you've been enjoying the show. But until next time, guys, we'll see you this coming Thursday, where I'm sitting down with another PWA star, which will be announced tomorrow. Have a great night, guys, and we will catch you in the next 2 days, 3 days, 2 days. Anyway, I digress. Bye, guys.
You're the host of the show.